You may not realize it, but the murder of Charlie Kirk has to do with what nature does teach us and what nature doesn't teach us. We're going to talk about that today, so stay with us. So welcome to All Things Apostolic here on September the 22nd, 2025. And we're working our way through this year. We're now in the 9th month. It's incredible that we're at the end of the 9th month. But by the same token, there's been a lot of really exciting and powerful accomplishments and forward movements in 2025. At the end of the year, sometimes I think maybe we ought to do a reassessment ATA, look back at the year and then look forward at the next year. Maybe we'll do that this year. Anyway, in our last ATA, I talked about nature and that nature teaches. And so the Bible says this in kind of an innocuous way, in kind of a passing way. Paul says, doth not nature teach us? And there he is using nature as a reason for things we should do and things we shouldn't do. So when you talk about nature, you need to understand we're not talking about God in the sense of God is moral. There is right and wrong. Nature is amoral. Nature's primary goal is not the production of morality. It is the production of the human race. So this is an important thing to realize. The prohibitions in Scripture that use nature as the reason are not scriptures that are at the most basic level describing something from the viewpoint of primarily or only immorality. It is saying that it's wrong because it crosses the purposes of nature, which is what we all live under. We have a human nature. There is nature. It is the state of reality on the earth. And so nature doesn't have emotion. Nature doesn't get angry. I mean, we talk about an angry storm, but nature itself is not sentient. It's not a person that says, I'm mad, and so I'm going to send a big tsunami and drown everybody. Nature is from God, but it's like the clock I mentioned last week. The clock is wound up and then it's turned on. And so what happens in nature, God doesn't get up every morning and say, I got to pull the sun up. It's time for sunrise. It's all part of nature. And it clicks, and we don't need to give a nature lesson here on how the sun rises, but it's inexorable. And then it's going to set, or the movement of the earth is going to create the illusion that is setting. And its speed is predictable because it's set according to natural laws. So there are natural laws that we live by. We're not talking about God as a loving or hateful God. We're not talking about a sentient God, not right now. We're not talking about an emotional God. We're talking about nature, and nature teaches us. So some of the core things I'm kind of teaching this in the wake of the Charlie Kirk murder. And now evidence has come out that the alleged killer had talked about killing him because he was giving hate speech about the things that this guy was in as a relationship. He was in a homosexual relationship, a same-sex relationship. He was in a relationship with a person who is attempting to make their physical self from a male into a female. And so this has all the elements of things that people nature, resist. Well, why do people kind of naturally resist that? And then the people that are caught in that are frustrated because they're thinking, I'm still a human being and I have individual rights, and so I want to do this. Well, the difference in that and having an individual right to say to cuss, okay, or something, there is a difference. While cussing is a scriptural, is forbidden thing to do, and we are to speak purely, it's not in the same category because it's not violating the core nature of nature. So what is nature's very first and by far most basic characteristic? It is reproduction. Nature is for the survival of life of every kind on the earth, whether it's trees and plants of other kinds, or whether it is non-human like animals, or whether, and of course far more so, about humans. And so the primary nature is wound up and is set for the reproduction, the promulgation, and the sustaining of the species, of the human species. That's the nature of nature. And you can see that in the things that are emphasized in the makeup of the male and the female body, that it is put together in such a way as to make of first importance reproduction. And the whole action of sexuality is set up around this, the plumbing, the desires, what is the deepest desire of man would probably be a sexual relationship and food. And so why is that? Well, because those are the two basic things for the sustainability of the species. And so nature puts those, and nature uses, I mentioned the other day, a ruse, R-U-S-E, a trick. And the trick is that the most pleasurable thing, one of the most pleasurable things, and addictive things, if you please, that happens with human beings is sexual relationships. And so this is, but this is nature's, nature's not against pleasure, but nature's primary goal is not pleasure. Its primary goal is reproduction and survival of the species. So for nature, anything, we're talking about nature teaches us. Nature is anti anything that is not pro survival, sustaining, and health of the species, of the human race. Anything that goes against that, nature is against it. So this is how nature teaches us. We have to figure out what nature's first goal is, and then we also have to include how nature accomplishes that. And I talked the other day about the physical conformation of the female body, in that it screams that reproduction and sustaining of the human race is a priority. And so you just think about that a little bit. And so the highest human physical pleasure is attained as the desire is expressed at its maximum, which ensures that the seed that creates reproduction is planted as deeply and securely as possible, and that there will be a result of that. Now, so when we talk about our bodies, we talk about them in this context. So this is why scriptures like Deuteronomy 22:5, which says, "The woman shall not wear that which pertaineth unto a man, neither shall a man put on a woman's garment, for all that do so are abomination unto the Lord thy God." So this is God, because it says it's an abomination unto the Lord our thy God. So this is God, but it's not just God in a moral sense. It's God understanding how nature is created, and God warning us, when you violate nature's prohibitions in any way, it is the most egregious and serious situation for your own well-being. And so God is saying here that this shows how extreme nature looks at keeping the tools, the human body, male and female, of taking care of them, of keeping them in condition so that they can continue to reproduce. And so to mix that is to create situations in which the human race cannot continue to be progenerated. And so this is why we look at anything that's not pro-human life. This is where infanticide, this is where abortion fits as being wrong. It's not just morally wrong in a religious sense. It is naturally against nature. Therefore, it can never be made an okay thing in society, no matter what anybody says, because it is a very raw and egregious violation of nature's reproduction goals for the sustaining of the species. And the same goes with same-sex relationships fall in the same category. There are no children born from such. Nature is thwarted. Nature is violated. And so nature repels that. And so there's something about, this is why these particular things carry an onus and severe warnings, is because when you fall into that and you become the illusion that you can become a woman if you're a man, or a man if you're a woman, is part of what the Bible calls vain imaginations. So people imagine these aberrations. These are aberrations. Don't get mad at God here. These are aberrations of nature. This is the way, this is the constitution of the human race. And the purposes of nature is to protect the human race. So when we preach certain things, it's because we are just simply, it's no secret, we are just simply aligning ourselves with what nature's goals are. Nature's goals are reproduction. And that's pretty clear. And to keep any, this is how radical nature is about this. To keep any idea of the mixing of male and female in terms of identity, all of these Old Testament prohibitions that were fulfilled with the coming of Christ, all of those Old Testament prohibitions were teaching lessons. Don't mix the seeds when you plant them. Don't mix the materials. Don't wear this material with this material. All of these ideas of keeping distinction and separation, especially those that apply to the identity of a man as a man and a woman as a woman, all of these are part of prohibitions and warnings and a forbiddenness, because nature's not going to change to accommodate that. And they're not prohibitions with the first knee-jerk reaction of nature being hate, or of God certainly being hate. The first reaction is, no, don't go there. Because when you go there, you're going into an area that's imaginary. Just like Adam and Eve went into an imaginary world, they bought They drank the juice. They bought the idea that there was a world that God was keeping secret, and that if they would explore it, they would discover it. And so they went on that exploratory journey and found out that it's all illusionary. It's not real. So now when you move that, again, somebody says, well, it's my body. God gave it to me. Or maybe if there is no God, if that's what you believe, it's my body and nobody ought to tell me what to do with it. Well, our response to that first would be, your body lives within the parameters of a natural world that has these borders for survival of the race that we have been discussing, and which, when they're violated, there is always negative results that can be frustrating to the person. This is why we have empathy and compassion for people that have fallen into these vain imaginations that they can change, or that there's more than two sexes. I mean, the human race has only been here thousands of years, and in that time, there's not a single man that ever had a baby, and in that time, there's not a single man that literally became a woman, and there is abundant data to show that is not possible, because it's nature. It's not God saying, no, I'm not going to let you do this. No, this is the nature of the world as it is created by God. This is the parameters of reality. And so this is why if you fall into that, you don't need to go crazy, but you need to stop and you need to say, I got to get myself extricated here, because it's me. It's about the destruction of yourself. And there are sinister forces behind this that hate the human race. And we don't have time to go into all that in the Bible today, but they hate the human race. They hate you. And they are working for your destruction. So anyway, so you look at the results of someone who is frustrated, and this young man that killed, or that allegedly killed Charlie Kirk is probably sincerely thinks that his hate is justified. But it's not, because what he's doing, if there was no Charlie Kirk, is a dead-end street anyway. And secondly, as far as nature's concerned, they have become like nothing, because of the relationship that he and his companion have is based on never having the possibility of productive rights, and becomes a symbol for others in the race that they would lure into that or tempt into that just by simply existing that way. That all works against nature, and so nature does not embrace that. So anyway, I'm trying to do this in such a way that we see that it's not some kind of hate-filled diatribe that people are on. It's the reality. And when we go places that nature does not have an accommodation for, because it violates the very purposes of nature, then the results are always disastrous and always fatal.